fellas?
How you going, boys?
Thank you.
Good.
What's
How
been
are you
going on?
Yeah, not much. Interesting little topic today.
Yeah,
I reckon.
blood flow restriction training.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've seen a few guys do it at the gym.
Yeah, I've been into it for a little bit.
Have you?
Yeah, it's
Cuffing up.
yeah, it's one of those things that I think you might have mentioned before, Dave. It sounded like a bit of a gimmick, you know?
Well, that's what I always thought it was.
Yeah.
And until I did a bit of research in preparation for this podcast, I've sort of changed my tune a little bit. Not that I think that I'll use it too often, but it definitely does have some benefits, particularly with rehab or injured clients.
Post-surgery.
Yeah.
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 So blood flow restriction training, or sometimes called Katsu, which is the Japanese fellow who invented it several years ago.
I think that's actually the name of the system.
Yeah, the Katsu bands. They kind of...
Yeah, because Katsu apparently is like the Japanese word for training with pressure or something like that. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Can you order a chicken katsu?
Sounds delicious.
It does.
I could go one right now.
Yeah.
That was good. That was a good one, Dave. That was a good one. Yeah, so Katsu is the band, I think, the type of band, like you said.
Yep.
So
that's a really fancy one.
It is.
Okay, so let's start with what blood flow restriction training is.
Yeah.
So it's when you partially obstruct the flow of blood to your extremities whilst you're exercising.
And it's low intensity exercise, isn't it?
Well, yeah.
And restricting the blood flow to the working muscle.
Yeah.
Because I guess it essentially mimics like high intensity, high load. It sort of tricks your body into thinking that that's what's happening because you get that build up of those like metabolic byproducts. So your muscles feel like they're working harder than what they are. So I think, like you said, it's really good for growing like your type 2 muscle fibers, but it's also really good for rehab because you don't have to lift heavy weight in order to stimulate muscle growth.
Yep.
So like, I think if you're coming back from an injury or something like that, or if you're elderly and you're worried about getting injury, which will set you back so far, then you can get away from only lifting sort of like 20 to 35% of your 1 rep max, as opposed to what you would normally do to try and build muscle where you're up in the 70s, 80s or higher.
Yeah.
To do the same sort of thing. So it's pretty nifty in that respect that you're sort of tricking your body into growing muscle. Yeah,
well, that's what I read. A lot of the stimulus that's created by it under the blood flow restriction training environment is similar to high intensity resistance lifting.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So at a muscular, like a cellular point of view, I think your muscles get tricked into thinking that that's what's happening, but you get none of the like risk associated with heavy lifts.
Yeah.
So pretty cool.
Yeah.
So not that gimmicky really when you look into the science of actually like what's happening.
Yeah.
And what it's stimulating.
Well,
but it sounds gimmicky, doesn't it? You put these special bands on, you pay us a fair bit of money for this fancy system, and you'll grow big muscles, and you go,
Yeah. So there's some you can buy that are really fancy, like those Katsu bands, are 300 plus, and they do specific arterial pressure that you need, and you can pump them up and pump them down, a bit like a blood pressure cuff, I suppose.
Yeah, like a thin blood pressure cuff. Yeah.
Because there are different measurements of the cuffs, aren't there? They're different widths.
Yeah, so depending on like your arm and leg size, I think you buy like a tailored, like diameter, so it'll fit around, your extremities.
Yeah.
So like your upper arm or your upper leg. And then I think you sort of work out your pressures based on your systolic blood pressure and stuff.
Yeah, right. So it's advisable to get a practitioner to measure your appropriate occlusion level.
I think you can get...
Or restriction level.
The Katsu website is very good. There's sort of
Q&As
really and there's a lot of information on there.
Yeah.
So you can get cheap ones that are a bit like a tourniquet, or when you're going in give some blood, or you have a blood test or you're going to shoot up some heroin. You tie off the end of your muscle, so that's kind of what they're doing. So you can get cheap ones like that off eBay for $20 to $40.
Yeah, right.
And I don't know how well they work. I think they do a pretty good job.
Yeah.
But these Katsu bands, are specifically pressured to you and the amount of blood flow that you want to get in and out of your muscle.
Right.
Yeah.
How do they get that information then to make it specific for you?
Oh, I think it would come with it.
There is a.
They might be automatic. I don't know.
Yeah, so there's a few different systems. So you got the Katsu system, and then you've also got other mobs, sort of like physios and stuff in the US that use a slightly different system where they use like a surgical tourniquet.
Yeah, right.
Which is a bit like a thinner version of a blood pressure cuff. And then what those guys do is they're measuring your systolic blood pressure, and then they're doing a percentage of that. So you don't want to completely occlude.
Yeah,
so there's no like venous or arterial blood or microcirculation going into your arm at all, because that can be really damaging. You can damage nerves and muscles and stuff. But I think they were using a formula like, say, to keep the numbers very round, if you're going to sort of do it yourself, if your systolic blood pressure was 100, I think they were doing like 40% of that. So you might pressure the band up to 40, and then you're going to get the right level of occlusion. Then you've got times and stuff like that. But I think one of the advantages if you use this Katsu system is you can get the bands, or you can get a system that comes with its own automated, it's like a small little sort of bicycle pump thing, and it actually intermittently pumps up and releases it as you're working out. It does it all for you. Oh. So it's essentially got its own little sensors and everything, and you can run a couple of different programs. You can run either a constant pressure one where it'll just maintain a certain pressure on your arms or legs, or it could run a cyclical one where it sort of, I think it inflates for 30 seconds and then it releases for 5 seconds, and it does a certain amount of rotations of that, and then you can run a certain amount of programs of that. So we'll probably get into a little bit more about the sort of physiology of how it works, and then we can probably loop back to like the advantage of I think the gold standard is using the cyclical one.
Yeah.
But the downside of that is that you got to buy that system, which is $1,000 US.
Yeah. Or so you got to tie off for 5 seconds.
Yeah. Exactly. I mean, you're not
Yeah.
realistically going to do that in the middle of a set, because
No.
my understanding is because you're lifting less weight and you want to get a build up of sort of lactic acid and other things, you're doing higher reps.
Yeah.
So if you're in the middle of doing 30 reps, you probably don't want to stop. Fuck, I've got to undo both my bands, your bands, keep going. Yeah. Oh, 5 seconds is up. Got to do my bands up. You're going to lose your mojo. So
yeah. If it's automated and coming in,
if it's automated, it's obviously the gold standard. I think you can even do stuff like swim with them. I think it's waterproof.
Yeah, people use them so the constant pressure one is pretty good for, say, a long slow walk.
Yes,
and you keep it on, you keep the pressure on, you tie off up near your hip, sort of around your leg,
like as high as you can go, really, isn't it? To get the maximum
as high as you can go on your extremity.
Yeah,
then you go for a nice long walk, 40 minutes.
Yep.
Release at the end.
So you wouldn't do a tourniquet at your hip and then one also at below your knee?
No.
Because you're not aiming to completely cut everything off. You're aiming to cut sort of most of it off, but you definitely still want microcirculation, and I think you even want a bit of venous return and a little bit of arterial.
Yeah,
but not too much.
Yep.
Yeah, it's one of those fine balance things, isn't it? I think there's risk with just using the band, sort of, if you're not careful.
Yeah,
like you don't want to get an actual tourniquet and actually put it on. You're going to damage nerves and fuck yourself up and increase your risk of blood clots and stuff. So,
so with regards to a protocol, I saw somewhere that it's recommended about 4 sets of 30 reps, then 15, then 15, then 15, and you're using about 20 to 40% of your 1 rep max. And between those sets, you're having about a 30 to 60 second rest.
There's a few different protocols.
Is there?
Yeah.
Yep. I think the 30 seconds on, 5 seconds off was Katsu specific.
That's actually for the pressure in the bands.
Yeah.
And then I think their protocol was similar. So it was something like, again, using about 20 to 40% of your 1 rep max. And then I think they were talking about like 30 reps, only about a 10-second rest period.
Mm-hmm.
And then like 20, and then the same rest period, and then like 15, and then maybe like 10 or 15 for your last. So actually 4 sort of sets.
Yeah.
With so very minimal rest. So you're trying to build up those metabolic byproducts in your muscle.
You definitely got to check your ego at the door at the gym, because you can't lift heavy because
bicep curl and
you're done in
5 kilos or something.
Yeah, really, really low
doing
weight.
Just the bar, or you might be squatting body weight or something, especially if you're older or you don't have a high squat
Yeah.
You know,
Well, if you're older,
you
it's
might be deadlifting 50 pounds or something.
yeah, or just body weight.
Yeah.
And so after with the regards to tightness measurement, so out of 10, would it be roughly about a 5, 6, 7 out of 10 tightness on the?
I'd say 7.
Yeah,
7.
Yeah. You've been doing it, haven't you? So
Yeah,
what
yeah.
have you got? Have you just got normal?
I've just got
tourniquet?
eBay.
Yeah.
Cheapies.
Yeah. So just similar to like what they would put on you if you were going to give blood or something like that. Like
yeah,
that sort of.
Yeah. It's kind of
So slightly thicker, maybe.
What's that? 2.5 centimeter band. So I think it's a bit thicker than the Katsu ones.
Yeah.
And
your teeth.
Nice.
Yeah, and then it's just got a clips in. Can pinch a little.
Yep.
If you don't get it right, and then just really lightweight. Even sort of some body weight chin ups, push ups.
Yep.
Are they practical, mate, to release during your rest period and then tighten up again to get going? Obviously, Smitty just mentioned maybe a 5-second rest and then a 10-second rest.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're releasing it and then tightening it up again in the rest period. Is it practical?
Not really for these ones. The rest is a little bit longer,
right?
Because it's just harder to tighten them up.
Yeah.
So it's almost, the Jim Stepani program that we're doing with the Tabata sets. It's might be good for that.
Yeah, right.
It'd kill you. But you could do a Tabata 20-10 sort of protocol, 4 minutes of work, have a good rest, switch it up.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Mate, how much different does it feel when you're doing it? Do you get like more lactic acid sort of pump, like pain going on? Does your arm or your leg feel really full of blood? Like, do you feel...
it's quite an odd feeling when you release it. Because you kind of get, on your arms, you get sort of, you turn a bit white, you get a bit tingly, and, you're releasing almost new red blood cells. Into that area, flush it all out. It's kind of a strange feeling. Yeah.
Should we talk about how it works, like the science behind it?
Yeah.
Because that's one thing that interested me. I wasn't quite savvy on how the science worked. I saw this report published in the NIH on website in January 2022 by the Department of Orthopedics and Rehab and Owens Recovery Science. It was called the blood flow restriction therapy, and it's used for rehab and return to sport. And that had a little bit of information in there. And Smitty, you mentioned it also that at a cellular level, metabolites are produced during this process, and they're products of metabolism that drive certain biological functions. So they amplify under BFR conditions. They amplify metabolite production. Yeah. So that's the whole idea of it, and then that induces then earlier fatigue, which then results in increased motor unit recruitment.
Yeah.
Is that
myokines?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that intermittent hypoxia generates sort of a increase in anti-inflammation myokines.
Yep.
So everything we do, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. We sort of talk about that a fair bit on the Ancestral Man podcast. And so all the exercise you do is trying to create a small stress that your body then has to overcome, realize and get better for the next time that happens. And this is similar, I guess. And those myokines are sort of help improve the endothelial function of the vascular system. So improving the, what's the word? Elasticity of veins and opening them up. And so cytokines, you might remember, was fairly big during COVID times. So you talk about, these cytokine storms that come in causing the issue of during COVID. So
inflammation, essentially, like massive inflammatory storm in your body.
Yeah. So myokines are the ones in the muscle. So they're increasing to the intermittent hypoxia. So the reduction of oxygen, they come in, reduce that inflammation, and it's a increase in hormone response. So you get human growth hormone, the real good thing about it is you don't have to lift really heavy weights. It's not too strenuous on the body. So you're getting all these benefits of that hormonal response. It increases muscle tone. So as those we talked about age-related muscle loss, so preventing sarcopenia was one of the things that was caused people to die early. That muscle loss, you fall over, you don't have the muscles to keep you up, and broken bones and whatnot. So as far as longevity is concerned, it's a pretty good one. So it also improves your metabolic flexibility, so being able to use sort of fat and carbohydrates as it increases the number of glucose transporters that come in after you release the band, come in, absorb the sugar in the cells and help distribute energy that way. So your insulin and your insulin resistance will be normalized. Is that the right word?
Yeah, it just helps your body stabilize sugar.
Stabilize, that's it.
You'll be able to get those extra GLUT receptors, which will uptake more sugar and
sort
of all the benefits that you get from growing muscle anyway. But I guess it allows you to do it at an older age with less weight.
Yeah, which
through those sort of tricks.
As you get older, that those chronic diseases from insulin resistance, type 2 diabetes, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, those ones, type 3
and just
diabetes.
falls like frailty and stuff, like you said. Like people literally just falling down and breaking a hip, and it's the end, isn't it? Like you look at the stats for elderly people once they fall and break a hip, and the sort of mortality rate within 2 years post fracturing their hip is something horrible. Like it's not quite a death sentence, but it's bloody up there. Like if you don't do some rehab and get moving again, it's quite an interesting thing. One of the things I found interesting about the BFR is sort of what's happening at a muscular level. So sort of most people would be familiar, if we keep it very simple, you've got like your type 1 and your type 2 muscle fibers. So you've got your type 1 fibers, like your slow twitch involved in like endurance and long efforts. And then you've got your type 2, and type 2 gets broken down into different ones, but we'll just leave it at type 2 for now. Your fast twitch, sort of glycolytic muscle fibers that rely more on that glycolytic pathway, like breakdown of sugar. And so what I found interesting is when you're putting on those BFR cuffs, you're essentially obviously stopping fresh blood from coming into the muscle during work. So even when you're lifting very light load, which usually your type 1 muscle fibers could handle lifting, because you don't need that explosive type 2 muscle fiber coming in, because no blood's coming in that's oxygenated, you've got that hypoxia in that muscle, your type 1 muscle fibers are essentially tapping out because they're oxidative. They need oxygen, your type 1 muscle fibers, to work. So what it's forcing your type 2 muscle fibers to do is to jump in and take the load. So it's working them at a much lower rate. So you could put those Katsu bands on and go for a walk, and when usually you're just going to use mostly your type 1 muscle fibers and sort of working on that, you're actually using and fatiguing your type 2 muscle fibers, which I found really fascinating.
Super interesting, yeah.
Yeah, because normally to exercise your type 2 muscle fibers, you've got to do something dynamic or fast or
exactly. So you're not having to
strenuous.
do that high weight explosive movements that you want to stimulate your type 2. You're going to do it from more mundane things like lifting 20% of your 1 rep max. And then the byproduct of that is, because you're using your type 2 muscle fibers and you've got that limb, let's say occluded or at least partially occluded, type 2 muscle fibers are glycolytic, which means they like to use sugar. We all know that they burn sugar and they've got their own reserves within your muscle. But then that sugar, that glucose, forms pyruvate, and then pyruvate forms lactate. So then what you're doing is you're getting a buildup of lactic acid in your muscle, and you're also getting a buildup of free protons. Basically, you're getting more acidic in there. Once you get that is the absolute trigger for your body and your muscles to start making human growth hormone and insulin-like growth factor. So it's essentially a cheat's way of naturally boosting your muscular levels of human growth hormone and insulin-like growth factor. Because usually a lot of the insulin-like growth factor is made in the liver, but your muscles can make it. And if it's made within the muscle, it's going to act within the muscle a lot more. So it's really fascinating. Like, it's a really interesting biochemical trick to force you to use type 2 muscle fibers and to help you build, as you spoke about, the human growth hormone and the IGF-1, the insulin-like growth factor.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, because your muscles aren't getting the blood flow and they're getting this sort of austere environment in there with the high lactate and the high level of sort of protons or acidity, you're getting it's called HIF-1A, so hypoxia inducible factor. So because your muscle's hypoxic, it's stimulating this HIF-1, and it's also stimulating something called VEGF, which is vascular endothelial growth factor. And what that's going to do is it's actually going to help you grow new like micro blood vessels and stuff within your muscles. Because one thing that happens when you get older is that your blood supply going to your muscles at a sort of a microscopic level actually gets poorer. And one of the reasons why, apart from the hormonal reasons why you don't grow muscle and maintain it, is because you're actually not getting the nutrients in there through your vascular network.
Mm-hmm.
So it's actually going to help you grow new tiny little like arterioles and stuff like that to actually give your muscles the fuel that it needs to work. So it's sort of tricking your body on all levels and giving you this like amazing boost.
Yeah.
And then once you've built up all this lactate in your muscles, that's also fuel for your brain. So like your brain uses sugar, but your brain can also use lactate. It can also use ketones. So if you do one of these workouts, you do it, you take the band off, and then you're going to get all this flush of sort of lactate into your system because you've built up all this lactic acid. That's going to go into your brain, and that's going to stimulate brain-derived nootropic factor, which is going to help you sort of grow new neurons and like stimulate your brain. So what a game changer.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, when you look at the biochemistry of what's happening, I find it like fascinating and pretty cool. Like there's a lot of benefit.
Yeah.
Huge benefit.
Yeah. All those myokines that I was talking about, they are IGF-1.
Yeah, okay, there you go. Yes. So, yeah, I mean...
Interleukin-6 and BDNF, brain-derived nootropic factor. So they all fall under that, HIF-1A. And
that's pretty cool, hey?
Yeah, it's crazy, yeah.
Just by partially occluding blood flow and lifting light weight.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, I don't know, like a lot of stuff we talk about comes from some sort of ancestral thing, but I can't think of what this is.
I was just thinking the
same thing.
thing.
Like, autophagy and fasting. Well, that's because they couldn't catch any bloody food, and cold water immersion. Well, they used to get exposed to cold and all this stuff. But you think about this, and this is a super scientific one where you go, I don't know if they used to partially occlude their limbs. For any reason.
No way would they.
This is one of the developments of science that have...
This is full nerding out. Like, how did these guys come up with this? This was invented, I saw, or they started working on it in 1966.
Right.
Japanese.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it goes back quite a long way. But I think in the Western world, it's only really come out in the last sort of turn of the century, really, like 2000, and hasn't really got big till maybe 2010. So quite recent.
Yeah.
Well, like you said, like Dave said earlier, it might have been a little bit of a gimmick. People are looking at these people in the gym with these bands on, lifting a kilo, doing curls, going, what is going on here?
Man, it sounds like a gimmick. It sounds like you get a free set of steak knives if you buy them or something like that.
But when you look into it and look into the science what it's doing on a biochemistry level is outstandingly beneficial for everyone, really.
Yeah.
Especially for longevity.
Yeah.
We often talk about that. We've done an app on that.
Yeah.
Some of the things I read was the increase of proliferation of satellite cells, which are cells that can develop into more than one cell during this process. And they're also responsible for muscle growth and regeneration. And it was originally thought that satellite cells were only activated similar to the type 2 fast twitch fibers during high intensity or high resistance activity. But it's actually found that they are increased in production during BFR conditions. And also we're talking about proliferation of certain chemicals and hormones and whatever. There's a down regulation of myostatin, which is a negative regulator of muscle growth.
Yep.
So that's actually sort of decreased, therefore actually helping the satellite cells do their thing about growing muscles.
Because myostatin inhibits muscle growth, doesn't it?
That's right. It stops muscles from getting bigger.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Amazing.
It is, eh?
Yeah.
Certain evidence of protein translation via certain pathways has an effect on muscle protein synthesis and hypertrophy. So there's a lot of little chemical things going on there during this simple process.
Yeah.
I was sort of quite baffled by a lot of the science behind it when I looked into it.
Yeah. I've heard of a lot of pretty high level clubs using it for injury rehab.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of like big American football teams and stuff like that, and sort of high injury rates, and they're able to keep the guys having like good muscle size, good strength, even though they can't load, you know, limbs. Like if they do a knee or I don't know, shoulder or whatever, they're still, you know, keeping that muscle in good health.
Yeah.
And then slowly the tendon or whatever can sort of repair.
Do you reckon that would be the
Bit of a game
major
changer.
sort of use of it, like compared to sort of like bodybuilding? I mean, I know a few bodybuilders. I wouldn't know whether they would be using this technique. I wonder whether its place really does sit in rehab and injury recovery and aged clients and that sort of thing.
I reckon you hit the nail on the head. I reckon elderly, maybe if you're sort of over 50 and you're starting to really fall off the perch with your hormones, or if you're injured and you can't lift, seem like the two big ones. Because I think when you're young, you obviously can, you know, use those heavier lifts and sort of stimulate that, you know, HGH, IGF pathway naturally if you want to. But obviously as you get old, like especially if you're sedentary and you're trying to get into it, if you go and start doing, you know, 85% of your 1 rep max and you're old, and your tendons are a bit sort of brittle and depleted, well, you're going to hurt yourself, aren't you? And then you're only going to do that several times, and you're going to say, "Fuck this! I'm just going to sit on the couch." Like, I think you could use it for.
I think
a lot of stuff.
A lot of elite athletes, so Olympic runners, things like that. But I think basketballers use them as well, and so it can be used during any phase of your training. So warm up, main exercises, cool down. I think they use it a lot as a warm-up. So say if you're running 100 metres on the track, you know, your 100 metres is 10 to 15 seconds, depending on who you are. 9 to 15, depending on who you are. They've done a few studies, and I'll try and find it, and we can link to it if I need to, but the human growth factor release is delayed, and after about 12 to 15 minutes, that's when that really kicks in, the human growth hormone. So they're using it for their warm-up. They put them on, use it for a warm-up, do their bits and pieces. If their race is at 12 o'clock, say, they take them off at 11:45, and then that human growth factor, growth hormone, kicks in 15 minutes later, and they're ready for their race.
Oh, so they're timing that surge of hormones for exactly the point that they want to...
Yeah.
Cool.
So, and athletes have reported feeling really light on their feet and quicker.
Yeah, fucking jacked.
Yeah,
wow.
Basketballers are already hitting their, you know, peak vertical jump.
Yep,
those kind of things, and it came from Japanese pitchers in baseball using it. You know, in pitching, you know, you pitch for what, maybe 10 minutes of an innings. You go and sit and you wait. So Japanese pitchers were using it, flushing that. You know, putting the band on, sitting down, taking it off. Yeah, using it that way. So really quite interesting.
I think it increases muscle recruitment as well, doesn't it? I think people have used it in warm up, and it'll actually you'll recruit more muscle fibers into a certain movement. So just by doing that, obviously you'll increase sort of strength and all that sort of jazz.
Yeah.
I think it's also really good for people in sort of sedentary work. So if you wanted to just put them on during the day. So even for recovery, people put it on, these athletes put it on, watch Netflix and chill.
Play some video games with your bands on.
Games, and, you know, if you're working just on emails.
Thumb muscles on the buttons of the controllers, whatever.
So what sort of, I'm only thinking there's only 2 major areas you can put a band on. It's at your groin or your hip, and at your shoulder.
Yep,
or you know, just below your shoulder at your bicep.
Do you reckon if you put it around your neck, it'd help your brain? Don't do that at home.
Is there one for your dick?
Maybe right at the base of the shaft.
But I suppose it would be similar. It's all vasodilation, isn't it?
So we're only really training specific muscles then. So how do I get a chest workout using this?
I heard someone talk about this, and they were saying that the flush in hormones will help your whole body. So, like, say you want to do bench.
Well, I guess it makes sense.
So you still put the
cuffs
cuffs on your arms as proximal as you can, so as close to your sort of armpits.
Yeah.
And clearly that is not occluding any of the blood flow to your chest. But I think, you know, by some advanced mechanisms, which are probably beyond what we're talking about, you're getting that build-up of metabolites, which is still eventually going to flush through your whole body. So it's going to have done the work. You're still going to get the benefit of maybe like that hormonal bump HGH, all that sort of stuff. So,
right.
you know, obviously you're using your arms in chest as well. So you're going to get that, you know, tricep and, you know, bicep and all that sort of stuff benefit. But I think you're also going to get that flush of stuff, which is going to go through and help the rest of your body.
Yeah.
Maybe not to the same extent.
Yeah. And so if you wanted to build calves, would you have a tourniquet under your knee?
I don't know. Have you heard of them doing anywhere other than just sort of proximal for the leg, or?
Yeah, I think just for the leg.
Yeah,
at top of the
just
leg.
Do the whole leg. Yeah, because you're probably going to get benefits in your quad. It's going to be very hard to
the large muscles
isolate your calves, but you may as well get the benefit of, because like just walking, you'll build. You go for a walk.
Yeah,
with bands
so
on.
you can apply this concept to aerobic training and resistance training. Yeah.
Here's the one I was interested in: is imagine the symbiosis of saying, all right, I'm going to go and do an hour of zone 2. We'll do zone 2 with bands on.
Yep.
Zone 2 is going to be essentially type 1 muscle fibers. It's going to be oxidative, you know, using oxygen. Put those bands on. It's almost like you're getting a double cheat. You're still getting your sort of cardiovascular. I don't know if that's going to take away from the benefits of zone 2 in the sense that you're not getting your type 1 muscle fibers to use the oxygen, or I don't know, but it seems like if it did work, you could almost have your cake and eat it too.
I did think the same thing.
Or maybe you could do half your zone 2 with bands and half without, then you're sort of getting both. Or I don't know. Or you could do 20 minutes with bands.
Yep.
And then 25 minutes or 40 minutes without. Or
I don't think it would be. I don't think you could run with them.
Nah,
you'd have to be a walk.
Maybe a brisk walk, or a sort of a light duty cycle, like a zone 2 cycling session would. I imagine would be okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw some figures here for aerobic training: 40 to 80% pressure at less than 50% of your VO2 max.
Right.
It is applicable for aerobic training.
40 to 80%.
Yeah.
That's pretty high. 40 to
80% pressure. But it also said the same for resistance training, 40 to 80% pressure.
Maybe it's a tolerance thing, because I imagine there'd be quite a bit of pain if you're getting up to 80% of your occlusion pressure. That's pretty high. Like, I imagine your limbs would be getting pretty red and full and.
But before you said the pressure's around 7 out of 10, so that sort of fits in there, doesn't it?
Yeah.
70% of pressure, and for resistance training, 20 to 40% of your 1 rep max.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty high pressure, isn't it? But yeah, and they reckon allow 3 minutes for adequate, like return of blood to the tissues. Is that about right? So that you give it 3 minutes after you've worked that particular muscle.
Yeah, I was giving it 2 to 3. Yeah.
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 And is there a maximum? So training a lower limb no more than 20 minutes and an upper limb no more than 15. Is there a limit to the? There's some of the figures I read in that report.
I guess it depends on the protocol, yeah, and maybe what type of bands you're using. Those Katsu ones, they suggest.
I don't think they'll do more than 20, maybe, or something.
I thought he said 45, but
that might be with the cycling one when it cycles
automatically,
possibly, yeah. But I don't think the static hold. I don't think it'll do.
Oh no,
because there is dramas with if your blood gets sort of stationary for too long, you've got a drama with blood clots.
Yeah.
So there is a suggestion that, well, 2 things. You can go too tight and injure like nerves and completely cut off your blood flow, which is really bad. But also if you're just dramatically slowing down your blood flow, I think they have mentioned that you can risk a high incidence of blood clots.
Yeah.
So I don't think you'd want to do it for, 40 minutes or something like that.
Yeah, sorry. I was talking about cycling.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Yep.
As in not cycling on your bike. Cycling 30
right.
on, 5 off, or you have a bit of a rest period so that doesn't occur.
Exactly, yeah.
And one of the other things is definitely don't use it on your arms and legs at the same time.
Yeah.
So you can't. That's bad news.
Because it essentially cuts off the venous return to your heart. You want to have some blood going back to your heart, or you're going to have bad days. So
yeah. Well, because there's obviously people that this wouldn't apply to. I mean, generally it's considered a safe practice, but there would be people, particularly those with a history of DVT maybe, or clot formation or blood conditions or hypertension
maybe even people on
from
blood thinners.
Yeah.
You maybe wouldn't want to get micro bleeding in there if you went too tight, or I don't know.
But under supervision, someone that's trained knows about it.
Yep.
It's definitely post-surgery, post-rehab is really good. And I think if you are having something where you need rehab and need surgery, you're seeing doctors, physios, people that are experts in the field, and if they're recommending this, I think that they would run through that with you.
Yeah,
I saw on the Katsu website, and for anyone who wants to research Katsu, it's spelled KAATSU.
It's all capitals for some reason, isn't it?
Yeah, Japanese.
Yeah.
There's some really good information on there, and there is actually, I think if you go to their online shop, there is a certification program for. So if you're like a PT or something like that, it was quite inexpensive. It was like I think it was $250, and you could do. Here we go, a Katsu specialist certification program, $250. It's an online curriculum for interested individuals, coaches, trainers, physical therapists, chiros, etc., to learn how to safely and effectively and efficiently use Katsu for individuals of all ages. So it's pretty inexpensive if you actually wanted to go and learn for yourself. And it's not online, so it's obviously quite accessible. It's a really good website.
Yeah. And I definitely recommend anyone considering this to really do some research on it.
Definitely, yeah.
See whether to do it properly or do it correctly whilst they're training, and also to see whether they actually are sort of eligible for it, or they don't have any conditions that can harm them.
Definitely, yeah.
Because if you're tightening that too tight, you can experience numbness.
Yeah.
If you're feeling that, then you're obviously doing something wrong, or the tingling is obviously you've cut a nerve off if you're experiencing tingling in your extremities.
Yeah, definitely seek some, doing your own research and seeking someone who is sort of trained to do it.
Yeah. I heard in preparation for this, I was listening to Dr. McCullough. He's huge on the BFR. He loves it. He's been talking about it for years.
Really?
He was saying he uses it for 2 or 3 hours a day. And since he started using that in his mid-60s, he's put on 25 pounds of lean muscle mass.
Wow.
That's pretty impressive for a guy in his mid-60s.
Yeah.
That's pretty impressive for a guy in his 30s.
Yeah.
Well, you were saying the guy who created Katsu is really jacked.
He is jacked, man. I think someone said he's got something like 18-inch biceps.
Right.
Really?
Wow.
That, for a guy in his 70s.
Yeah.
That's impressive for a guy in his 30s.
Well, it seems to be great for longevity. So these older fellas, and that's why McCullough is so great on it. He pumps it up all the time. Yeah, talks about it a lot.
It's just the cost. Like the Katsu system is expensive.
It's
$1,000.
Is that right?
It's $1,000 for their most basic system. Because you can buy the air bands separately, but they don't work without the pump. So at some stage you got to pony up $1,000 if you want to get into the Katsu system. Yeah. Otherwise, you're using the home bands. I mean, if you're a practitioner and you were using it with a lot of patients, that would obviously be quite affordable, and the cost per use would be very little.
Yeah.
It's money, but especially if you're elderly and you want to increase your longevity.
It seems like the benefits, decrease your muscle loss, so that's a plus for living longer. You're decreasing your chronic disease risk through that insulin resistance. That's a plus. Your metabolic flexibility goes up. You're decreasing your stress in joints when you're exercising.
Yep.
Increasing bone density. That was one I saw there.
You can do fairly aggressive exercise with really minimal weights. It's if you
hormonal
want
bump.
Yeah, hormone. If you have limited space, you could do. Say you travel lots and you're in a hotel. Hotels usually have gyms, I suppose, but you could use that. But if you're stuck in a confined space, or you can do push-ups, you can do bodyweight squats, you can even do sort of arm curls without. If you did lots of them,
I've heard of people just doing the weight of their arms.
Yeah,
curling. If you do enough, you'll still get that sort of pump. So
not for us because we're big dudes, but older people that can't lift anything, they would have little ones. But it just seems really one of those ones that you kind of come across and really look into and go, that seems like maybe $1,000 US and the certification, $1,500 is a real investment in your health and your future, just to be around for a long time.
I wonder if there's any Katsu practitioners in Perth that that do it. You can go there and do it as a part of a program, or a PT that carries them or something, or if it's still too new. I think it's a business opportunity for someone like
for sure.
You might not want to pony up $1,000 US. Probably cost you $1,500 Aussie by the time you shipped it and paid GST and all that sort of stuff. But if you're using it a lot, what a game changer.
Yeah, it sort of reminded me a little bit of that Speed Fit concept. I don't know if you've seen those Speed Fit gyms where you're connected to all these electrodes. So electrodes are connected to each sort of muscle group, and it's probably more more available muscles to be able to connect to, as opposed to just the bands over your bicep or at your groin. So, and then you're taken through a 20-minute light body weight sort of workout, exercising every muscle group.
So is that stimulating?
Yeah, and you're also, you can dial up this machine, and that sends electrical impulses to each muscle, and you can actually...
so it's like contracting the muscle for you.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Whilst you're still exercising that muscle. So say, for example...
So it's sort of building on top of your own impulse kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you're receiving double impulses.
Yeah, right.
You're receiving...
Double stimulation.
Yeah, your own... Yeah, so for example, you'll have a person doing, say, the bicep curls. There'll be an electrode on their bicep. You'll dial up the dial for bicep curl until they feel the muscle start to twitch.
Come on, push.
Yeah. And then they can do their curls. And if you do dial it up too far, they can't curl because the muscle just goes into spasm.
Oh wow!
Right. It's really interesting. But this reminded me of that.
Yeah. Wow.
That concept.
And I'm pretty sure you can swim with them. I think there's a waterproof one.
Yeah.
So there's a range of different things you can do. But imagine going for a walk and being able to build type 2.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah, I'll consider it. I'm not going to spend a lot of money on it. I might get some of the bands that you've got, Jonesy, and give it a try. I don't know. I have to try it first. Have you noticed any results since you've been doing it? Or
looking jacked.
Oh, look at those 18-inch biceps.
Yeah, no, I probably cycle in and out of it, so I haven't probably done it for maybe a year or two.
Yeah,
but it's good. It's really good at home where I don't have a huge array of weights and stuff, so I'll use it every now and then and just do some chins and.
Be good if you didn't want to buy a lot of weights.
Yeah,
because weights are expensive.
Yeah.
You know, weight plates cost a fair bit of money these days. Especially if you want to buy bumper plates or something like that. But just buy yourself a barbell.
Yeah,
put it on your back. Do squats.
Yeah,
do some curls. Do I don't know.
Yeah,
chest, whatever. Because you don't have to lift much weight. So
super interesting.
Yeah,
get into it.
It'd
be good to hear from any listeners if they've tried it or if if there's any Katsu practitioners out there. Get in contact with us and we'll get you on the show. And you can come and have a chat to us.
I'd love to hear a specialist talk about this.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Someone that's trained in it.
Yeah. You guys have got me all excited. Maybe I'll go and do it and start up a business.
Just do it, mate. $1,500. Don't even worry about it. You're a rich man.
Write it off on tax.
Tax write off. There you go.
Yeah.
Beautiful. All right.
Cool.
Well.
Food for thought.
Interesting.
Yeah. Any closing remarks or?
No, let us know if you know about it.
Yeah, that'd be great. Love to hear about it.
And do your homework before you have a go at it.
Definitely know that there's a couple of risks. We're not doctors, obviously, so go and check it out for yourself. But obviously, lots of benefits and
lots of intricate intracellular things going on.
Yeah, like a real modern biohack, really.
Star Wars shit, isn't it?
Yeah,
it's out there.
Yeah, it's good. I love it. Right. On the fringes.
On the fringes.
That's where we are. All right.
Should we get our air guitars ready?
Get them ready.
Go on then.
There we go.